Yeah, and I think going into this matchup then, we know that there's essentially an established core from Jorge's side. You've got the Fire, Water, Grass availability with that Calyrex Shadow Rider, so it may well be a strategy and key that we're going to have to see from Jorge's side, but the leads are out, Zoe. We have started this game one. Smeagol accompanied by the Ogerpon Halflame versus Marco's Koraidon and the Iron Crown. Got a bit of an interaction there. Booster energy will be able to activate
special attack.
Warp Drive for special attack, wanting to just go on the offensive and maybe even have setup potential with the Calm Mind.
Yeah, this Iron Crown on the field is a very big threat offensively to both the Smeagol and the Ogerpon. Now, the Smeagol does carry wide guard, so the Iron Crown has to be very careful. But with access to Tachyon Cutter and the special attack boost, it can just cut right through that focus sash that the Smeagol carries. And Iron Crowns are normally trained to be faster than the Smeagols, so I think Marco is probably feeling quite confident about the damage. But then there's that Follow Me Ogerpon also on the field, but looks like the Koraidon actually just going to withdraw immediately.
Yeah.
We can see indeed.
Oh, we are indeed the sociable, being able to bring the Psych Terrain via its Psychic Surge ability. Will be able to allow this Iron Crown to essentially go for Expanding Force and now hit for spread damage whilst having the bolstered damage output. So it's going to really depend on whether we're going to see a read from Jorge's side. Is there going to be the safe redirection here, or is there going to be a bit of an aggressive spore action into the Iron Crown as it does tear into water?
Yeah, it looks like Iron Crown very scared of fire, or some boosted fire type Ivy Cudgel coming from this Ogerpon. Looks like an answering terrestrialization on Jorge's side. It is going to be into this Ogerpon.
Oh.
It's going to get that attack boost, and those Ivy Cudgels or any attacks that it lands is going to hit really, really hard.
And it does move second, so it seems like Iron Crown does have the speed advantage, at least for this turn. And Body Aspect will be able to bolster its attack up to +1. Fake Out, caught out by the Indeedee switching. Tachyon Cutter will more than likely, I'd say more than likely, it's definitely picking up the KO. It is gone, and like you said, the multi-hit interaction of Tachyon Cutter means it's so well placed. And with this Terra Water and the Ivy Cudgel completely anticipated from Marco, excellent turn one. Oh my lord! I was about to say it's going to take this quite nicely, but it nearly one-shot.
Is that equipment? No, it's so strong. And now Jorge may have lost that Smeagol, which is a really disruptive Pokemon, but there's now that Rillaboom. It's going to come in and completely override the Psychic Terrain, which means once again the Fake Out is going to be active on the field. So Marcos might want to think about switching out this Indeedee to come back in later on, and then those super strong Psychic Terrain boosted Expanding Forces will be hitting both targets.
Yeah, definitely. And wanting to opt in and get the Terrestrialization out of the way right now sort of makes sense from Marco's side. You're able to definitely avoid that KO from the Ivy Cudgel. But most importantly, the Koraidon doesn't necessarily need to Terrestrialize in this matchup because there's no Psych-type move from the Calyrex in order to want to forego that weakness.
Yeah, now, this Koraidon in the back, it's... You know, some Koraidons, I believe, can actually KO a Fire-type Ogerpon with the Flare Blitz in the sun. So it's not over yet, but it looks like the Expanding Force going to just come a single target doesn't do not even half.
Oh.
And now the Ivy Cudgel responding back onto this Indeedee. Sun booster easily enough to take the one-hit knockout.
Yeah, there's no shot. It was not going to survive that, especially under Sun. Fire Terra multiplier. You've got the +1 in attack. This Ogerpon is absolutely on a riot going for maximum damage output. And something to note, Zoe, I don't think we realized, there's no Calyrex on Jorge's side in this game one. Smeagol's down. We've got the Incineroar, Ogerpon, and Rillaboom.
Wow, that's just... A mark of, I think, a really strong player is sometimes they bench, they're restricted, recognizing that, yes, this is my strongest Pokemon, but in this instance, it's not the most helpful. I have better tools to deal with my opponent's Pokemon. So we are going to see whether or not this decision to leave Calyrex Shadow Rider on the bench is going to pay off. But the Fake Out now with the Grassy Terrain is going to come off, and the Grassy Glide, priority easily enough to knock out this Water type Iron Crown.
Well played. The Iron Crown is down for the count, leaving Marcos down with their final two Pokemon. The Chiyu, of course, did get flinched via the Fake Out that was dispatched from the Incineroar, not on Marcos' side, of course, even though the plushie's there, from Jorge's. And now the Koraidon will be able to be brought back in on the field. And initially, seems like speed advantage is on Marco's side.
Yeah, Marco's got down to his final 2 Pokemon, while Jorge still has one more, so he can, with the 3 Pokemon, go for all these Intimidate cyclings. And of course, the Koraidon has the clear amulet, so it's not going to be affected. But because Jorge has won the terrain war, he can just constantly come in and out with those fake outs. The Chi-Yu is Choice Scarf, so whatever attack it locks into, it cannot switch the next turn. But Koraidon offering quite a strong offensive pressure right now, and in that range, that Ogerpon will be knocked out by a Flare Blitz.
Yeah, especially if it's not even fast enough to be able to outspeed an Iron Crown. It's definitely not going to be able to be fast enough to outspeed the Koraidon, as it does acknowledge that, goes for the spiky shield, wants to make sure it does not get failed by this Dark Pulse from the Chi-Yu. Most importantly, the Koraidon actually wants to try to double and make sure it can guarantee the KO onto the Ogerpon. Doesn't even go for the Incineroar there, which was honestly wide open for a KO, allowing it to get the parting shot onto the Chi-Yu. Will be dropping its special attack now down to -1, whilst bringing the Rillaboom back on the field. There's no Indeedee left on the other side, so fake out galore is available.
Yes, without Indeedee, all this fake out cycling is going to be so effective against Marco's side. Now, Koraidon can protect, and then in the next turn, because of that clear amulet, no matter how many times this Incineroar switches in, it will not be dropping the attack. And the Ogerpon, it's slowly regaining health from the grassy terrain, but Koraidon is just really strong. It looks like there's no protect coming off. It is going to be a fake out straight into that Koraidon and prevent it from moving.
Yeah, exactly. And because it's at -1 of special attack, it got the flinch. He saw Marco absolutely celebrate in that scenario, because that allows him a lot more room to be able to pick up those pivotal KOs.
Yes, this is a really crucial flinch, because now the Ogerpon did not manage to get any damage off. This Koraidon is in a really strong position. It can just pick off any target that it wants to. It looks like now the Rillaboom is so threatened, it's going to withdraw for that Incineroar to try and soak up a super effective Fire-type move.
Yeah, I want to see if there's going to be a commit of the Collision Course into the Rillaboom slot in anticipation of that switch out, because surely if you're Jorge, you want to be able to go on the defensive with the Spiky Shield, as we do indeed see, and bring that fake out online. The subsequent turn, Dark Pulse goes into the Incineroar, of course, negligible amount of damage, and there it is. You want to make sure you can guarantee the KO on that slot, and that's exactly what Marco's done. He's been able to get rid of the big bad cat, and the Jorge will now be bringing the Rillaboom. Sure, there is fake out available, but there's a lot of offensive pressure from Marco's side of the field, being outspeeding essentially both of Jorge's.
Yeah, this Koraidon is in such a strong position now. Although the sun is no longer active, which means that Koraidon no longer gets the attack boost, no longer gets the boost to its fire-type moves, this Rillaboom is not going to enjoy taking any type of fire moves. Now, it does manage to come in as the grassy terrain went out, so it's been reset, which means that it can help out its teammate Ogerpon with regaining the health. And without the sun boost and the attack boost, this Ogerpon can quite, tank those hits from the Koraidon. But looks like Koraidon once again is going to get faked out.
Yeah, especially because the Dark Pulse is not enough to pick up the KO, but can it get another flinch? It does not, because I saw the word flinch and I freaked out. Ivy Cudgel will be set off. No flinch over on the Ogerpon side, actually targeting the Koraidon there, wanting to make sure it can get rid of that as a priority and maybe allow a lot more variability when it comes to sustaining Chi-Yu's damage right now.
Oh, this is really interesting, because Chi-Yu can't KO the Ogerpon with a Dark Pulse, but of course Ogerpon can Spiky Shield. Now, if Koraidon attempts to Flare Blitz the Rillaboom, it's going to take so much recoil damage that a Grassy Glide will KO. It looks like now the Dark Pulse does go off into the Ogerpon, which goes for the Spiky Shield. What did this Koraidon go for?
Yeah, it went for the Flare Blitz. It's going to go ahead and just miss the KO, because, of course, there is no sun, which doesn't allow the Orichalcum Pulse to come into effect and further bolster the damage output. So Woodhammer will be going for the solo Chi-Yu, as there is no other slot to go for, dealing a 2-shot. Of course, there is a grass terrain recovery to factor in right now, but all of a sudden, we've seen Jorge actually turn this one round.
Oh, he has indeed, and I think that parting shot earlier onto this Chi-Yu was so critical. Had Marco predicted that and then gone for the collision course into that Incineroar, then the Chi-Yu would not have had that special attack drop, and it would have been able to KO the Ogerpon. But as it is, the Grassy Glide comes in, not enough to knock it out, but there's going to be another Grassy Glide, and this fish is completely out of water.
It is indeed. If one Grassy Glide's not enough, how about chucking in another one and being able to guarantee it, as we have seen Jorge doing a really good job in being able to dispatch of Marcos's strategies.
And without his Calyrex Shadow Rider.
Exactly. No restricted.
Yes. And when you look at the matchups, you can kind of see, oh, okay, there's two dark types. I see why Jorge decided to bench the Calyrex Shadow Rider, but it's such a brave move because that is the top threat on your team. But Jorge then recognizing, I have better options.
Exactly that, and I think just being able to factor that in is essentially a true mark, like you said, of a great trainer. Both of our trainers don't have the biggest of, most notorious of achievements, but this in of itself is such a great accomplishment. The fact that they're in Swiss round number 6 right now, essentially what feels like a Spanish Nats, because you've got the predominant region of trainers being Spanish. You know, there's a lot on the line, but they're already excelling to a great degree. But Jorge currently is in the lead. What can Marcos do in order to adapt?
Well, I think both the teams are quite evenly balanced, and Marcos now has seen that his opponent was willing to bench the Calyrex Shadow Rider. So is he going to read into that? Is he going to bring maybe some other Pokemon, like maybe a Brute Bonnet could be? But I think the Pokemon that he brought in that last game, they were the right Pokemon, but
they felt like
just quite able to that critical turn where he didn't collision course the Incineroar, I think, and allowing that parting shot.
Yeah, but we're going to go ahead and see Game 2 leads. Bit of a change-up. We have got Calyrex Shadow Rider accompanied by the ever-so-notorious Smeargle versus the Iron Crown and the Chi-Yu. So now, you know, if you thought that the Iron Crown wasn't dealing enough damage before, guess what? We've got the Beads of Ruin online. But that will be assisting the Calyrex Shadow Rider as well, which, you know, kind of surprised to see it being brought here.
Yeah, maybe Jorge was predicting Marcos to try and counter what he had led in the last game. Now, Smeargle has no way to protect itself. It can go for the fake out, but if there's an Indeedee in the back, which, judging by the fact that the Iron Crown was brought, it's very, very likely this Smeargle might want to think twice before clicking that fake out, because in game 1, it did get that fake out nullified by the Psychic Terrain, but it looks like there is going to be no switches this turn. We are going to get an immediate turn 1 terrestrialization from this Iron Crown into the Terra Water type. So trying to get around that weakness to those astral barrages that might be coming its way. And now it's going to be the fake out once again. Jorge did not fall for it. Fake outs this Chi-Yu and allows the Calyrex to go for a powerful astral barrage boosted by that Beads of Ruin. Yeah,
exactly that. And it's going to deal so much damage onto the Iron Crown, but it will survive. It is allowed to go for the Tachyon Cutter, dealing a tiny bit more damage this time around, being able to bring it all the way down to its Focus Sash thanks to the Beads of Ruin. But most importantly, same as game 1, picks up the KO.
Once again, Smeargle goes down turn 1 to a Tachyon Cutter. This Smeargle does not seem to be able to catch a break. But this is great for Jorge because now he can bring in his Ogerpon. And we saw in that last game, it was so effective against the team, dealt out so much damage. And with that Terra option baited out by this Iron Crown, you know, he can go for maybe a priority Giga Grassy Glide onto the Iron Crown, or because the Calyrex is still on field off, you know, threatening so much damage, you could think about terrestrializing the Calyrex and just start spamming those Astral Barrages.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's going to come down to a 50-50 mind game here, whether you expect the committed Terra on the Calyrex or not, but it seems like it's actually going to be the Ogerpon going for the Terrafire. It will bolster up its damage output via the Embody Aspect +1 in attack. No switches of the Rillaboom at the moment, and I think the indication is because we've got the Protect from the Calyrex. However, Snarl will be the move of choice here. The fact that Terra's already been burnt on the Ogerpon rather than the Calyrex means the Calyrex is actually in a bit of a tough spot if this Chi-Yu is not got rid of. of as the Expanding Force critical hit is able to pick off the Ogerpon the moment it terrestrialized, it left the field.
Oh no, this is a huge critical hit. We saw in game 1, the Expanding Force did not do that much damage to the Ogerpon outside of the Psychic terrain, so the Ogerpon likely would have survived and gone for an attack. But now the Ogerpon got knocked out without having done anything, and Jorge gave up his terrestrialization, which means this Calyrex is going to take ×4 super effective damage from this Snarl Chi-Yu, which is Choice Scarf, so it will be going first.
Yeah, exactly. You had double-layered multipliers there rather than just the regular Beads of Ruin. However, female Ndidi is brought onto the field immediately after seeing its arch-rival terrain setter Rillaboom being brought as well. It's able to bolster up its special defense. Fake Out, most crucially, is blocked thanks to the terrain being brought in. Snarl, is it enough? It is enough! Look at that! Absolute damage because of the ×4 weakness.
And the Beads of Ruin multiplier on top. Chi-Yu is just such a strong Pokemon. Snarl normally isn't a big offensive threat, but when you're ×4 weak, it is absolutely huge. And now there's this lone Rillaboom on the field. It's under Psychic terrain, which means the Iron Crown can just eventually come in and go for those really powerful Expanding Forces. This Rillaboom only has U-turn and Grassy Glide, so, you know, it can't... Oh, actually, no, the Iron Crown is water type, so it will be hit super effectively. But the Indeedee can just follow me away, but you know what? Jorge recognizes this and is just going to forfeit and rethink about his approach to game 3.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's definitely necessary after what was such an emphatic turnaround in that game 2. You see Marco going ahead, being jubilant there, and very excited to this prospect of still remaining undefeated. But you are one game away from whether continuing and extending that record or it being brought down to the one loss. However, got Jorge, really good job, game 1. But game 2, it was an absolute riot from Marco's side. Is it down to the Calyrex Shadow Rider being brought, Zoe? What do you think?
I think so. The Calyrex Shadow Rider was actually a little bit detrimental in that game. It did manage to get a really powerful Astral Barrage off, but that Choice Scarf Chi-Yu on the other side, also with the Snarl, which means that because this Calyrex is not the Cover Cloak set that some players favor, if it gets hit by a Snarl, it's at -1 special attack, and it's not really going to be doing that much damage. So the Chi-Yu is such a strong counter to the Calyrex that I think Jorge had the right idea in that game 1, just benching it, let the other Pokemon deal with it, and this could potentially be something we see in game 3. But then, what if Marco reads into that and switches up his Pokemon to deal with a non-Calyrex style team?
Yeah, I mean, it's mind game after mind game, and something that both of our trainers will honestly have to think long and hard for, but there's not that much time as we're going to be going ahead and clocking into game 3. One of our trainers will remain undefeated at the end of this set, as we're going to go ahead, take a preview of the leads. We have got same lead over on Marcos's side. It's going to be the Crydon and the Iron Crown versus the Incineroar and the Ogerpon. So a bit of a change up here. I'm not sure if either Smeagol or Calyrex, one of the two, have been left behind, but that would be my assumption.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see this complete switch up from Jorge's side, just deciding, you know what, didn't work out for me quite that last match where Marco was thinking, you know what, my leads, it was quite dominant and, you know, allowed me to get that win. And so I'm going to stick to what I know. But I think with the Iron Crown on the field, it's an indication there's an Indeedee in the back. So Fake Out might not be on the table for Jorge.
Yeah, and you could easily try to go for the parting shot pivot, essentially, and try to lower at least the damage output of this Iron Crown, but then you're sort of leaving your Incineroar susceptible if you don't try to go for the follow me here rather than go on the offensive. There are a couple of mind games to factor in here. Like you said, maybe Grass Glide, I'd say, would be an option, but not necessarily, as we do have the Calyrex Shadow Rider actually being brought onto the field.
Yeah, the Calyrex Shadow Rider switching in, normally, you know, might think, oh, if we take damage, but Jorge is probably predicting a collision course from this Koraidon, and that Ghost type is going to be so helpful in giving that resistance. Now, Ogerpon once again terrestrializes in all 3 games, choosing to take advantage of the sun that Marco set up to have the extra powerful attacks, and looks like Koraidon just going for a protect this turn to try and burn that potential fake out since he did not switch in the Indeedee.
Yeah, and it's actually a double protect here, just purely on the scout trend at the moment. Calyrex did just get brought in. Ivy Cudgel actually was trying to target down the Koraidon there, so definitely wanting to put it within range for the Calyrex to be able to pick up a KO and start getting the snowball effect going because of its as-one/Grim-Nay ability.
Calyrex is in a very strong position here, threatening both the Koraidon and the Iron Crown with absolutely huge damage with Astral Barrage. Now, it's very likely Marcus is going to try and switch in the Indeedee in the back to try and take one of those Astral Barrages and also boost the damage of this Iron Crown with the Expanding Force. But we saw how much damage the Ivy Cudgel did to the Iron Crown, even under Terra Water. And it looks like Marcos is going to answer back with his own terrestrialization into this Iron Crown.
And we have seen the speed interactions. The Iron Crown is faster than the Ogerpon, so the Calyrex is going to have to try to put in the work right now and really focus down on essentially allowing the Ogerpon a bit more breathing room in the subsequent turn, as it's opted to go for the Spiky Shield. Astral Barrage, this is Life Orb boosted. No super effective moves, but when do you need a super effective move? When you guarantee a 2-shot on both of your opponent's Pokemon.
Yes, now the Collision Course is going to go into the Spiky Shield, so the Koraidon is going to take a little bit of recoil damage, so the Spikes probably dug into it a little bit too hard, but the Tachyon Cutter comes out. Looks like it's not going to be enough to get the knockout and allows this Calyrex Shadow Rider to stay on the field. And next turn, since it is the fastest Pokemon on the field, it can easily threaten with a double knockout of Astral Barrage if Marcos is not careful and either goes for the Protect on his Pokemon or switching that Indeedee to try and get that immunity to the Astral Barrage.
Yeah, it's very impressive damage as well dealt onto the Calyrex. This is without Beads of Ruin, so I feel may have actually been enough to tip it towards a potential KO onto it, especially because of the 1.3 multiplier in the booster energy ability with the Quark Drive interaction. But we've got a situation right now that Astral Barrage, like you said, Zoe, it's sort of what stops the Calyrex to move first, go for another one. It's the female Indeedee, so there could even be a play where Ogerpon's the slowest thing on the field. We could easily see a Rillaboom being brought in to be able to guarantee the terrain is grassy rather than psychic.
And here we go, the Indeedee is going to switch in to set up the psychic terrain and make sure that the Iron Crown can go for those really strong expanding forces, but the Calyrex is going to be faster, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this Iron Crown go for the Protect, but oh no, there is no Protect. It's just a straight up Astral Barrage into this Iron Crown. That's going to be easily enough to take the knockout.
Oh wow, what a big KO there. Sort of both of our trainers playing a bit of chicken in that scenario, trying to lean into potential reads there and say, okay, well, I'm going to go on the offensive. It's like, just in case you don't. It's like, no, I'm going to go on the offensive just in case you try to go on the defensive. And we see that pay off so well for Jorge, picking up the 1 KO, followed up by another under Sun from this Ogerpon. What a display of power.
Sun boosted, body aspect, attack boosted, Ivy Cudgel boosted by that.
How many more boosts do you want?
There's just so many damage multipliers that this poor Indeedee was not able to get anything off. But now the Choice Scarf Chi-Yu is on the field. It is the fastest thing on the field, and because the terrestrialization has been used up, we saw in that game that Snarl was easily enough. So this Calyrex Shadow Rider is now quite threatened on the field, and once the Shadow Rider has been dealt with, then the Koraidon can deal with this Ogerpon. So it is definitely not over yet for Marcos. This Chi-Yu is going to be very critical, but if Jorge has his Rillaboom in the back, he can go for a fake out later, but it looks like first he's just going to scout out what this Chi-Yu is going to lock into.
Yeah, and I think you definitely want to sack the Calyrex Shadow Rider to be able to bring in that free switch-in of the Rillaboom, most likely, like you said, to forego the Psych Terrain, transform it into the Grassy, have the fake out pressure available, and go on the offensive with the Ogerpon, as we saw, try to get targeted down by that Collision Course, and the Koraidon actually would get a bit of recoil damage, I would say recoil, damage directly from the Spiky Shield in its attempt. And yeah, sort of what we were talking about, Zoe, you've got Fake Out online most critically here.
Yes, the Koraidon does so much damage to itself. Well, at the Rillaboom with the fake out might not be enough to get the... It's actually pretty close at this range, whether or not that fake out will get the KO on the Koraidon. And looks like now the fake out's going to... Not enough! The Koraidon is going to hang on, so the Snarl is going to come out. Now, since it's not... It's just neutral damage to both targets. It's not do anything with the special attack and allows this Ogerpon to get us really strong Ivy Cudgel off.
Yeah, exactly. Probably going to go for the Chi-Yu, yeah, because you've got the fake out locked down on the Koraidon. Whoa! One hit KO onto a resisted Pokemon. Sure, it's not the most bulky when it comes to its physical defense, but my lord, the damage is impressive. And Jorge absolutely running rampant with this team versus Marco, essentially going ahead and going to be extending his undefeated status as the Grassy Glide is enough.
Well, the double Grassy Glide, we're probably going to see the Rillaboom attempt it, but of course the Koraidon fainted, so that is not going to happen. And well done to Marco Jorge for winning this game.
And what a way to go about it. You see the excitement and the passion from Jorge being able to run through with the 6-0 status right now, guaranteeing that